His video is online.
I might do, yes, thank you. Right, let's just make sure all this is working. Hi. So how many of you know what this is? Does anyone know what this is? This, specifically this point, is where Facebook knows that you have started a new relationship. Whether or not you've told Facebook that you've started a new relationship. So how do they know? They know because of these little black dots. Each one of those black dots represents the number of timeline posts between you and another user. And the horizontal axis is days. So as you can see, there are 100 days leading up to the point where we have that drop off and your relationship status has changed. So what really interests me about this is where within those 100 days does Facebook know that you're about to start a new relationship? Is it before you know or not? That's a very interesting question. There's some intelligence there that they have about you, right? Not just your raw data, not just the posts, but intelligence about you. But a more interesting question for me is who owns this data and this intelligence that's derived from it. Now, this was in a blog post that Facebook released, and someone in the comments asked, is this anonymized data publicly available? And Facebook's response was, sorry, we don't even release anonymized data. It's strictly for internal use. So let's go back to that question. Who owns our data? In this case, it's very clear, right? Facebook owns our data. Now, if you've been following the news recently, they bought WhatsApp for a combined sum of $19 billion. That's an interesting number, isn't it? It's a big number. Why was WhatsApp worth $19 billion? It was worth $19 billion because what they bought was about 450 million telephone numbers. But more importantly, the conversations, the future conversations of 450 million people that they can listen to. And that's why it's worth 19 billion. So you might say, so what? That's fine, you know, they're going to provide me the service, they're going to keep, I like WhatsApp, what's your problem with it? To truly understand why networks like Facebook, etc., Google, and their business models are important, we have to understand the age that we're living in terms of our relationship with technology, because things have changed in the last 30, 40 years, right? There was a time when computers filled up entire rooms, and you actually had to drive to one to use it, right? They were these external, impersonal machines. Today, they cannot get more personal. We wear them on our persons, right? We take them along with us. There was a time when computers did not know about each other, and neither did they know about the world around themselves. Now that too has changed today. Today, via a plethora of sensors, computers are always aware, always seeing, always listening. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch today to say that we are, via these devices, cyborgs. Not that we implant them, but that we extend our biological capabilities by what they allow us to do. So what do they allow us to do? Basically, to manipulate reality and to experience reality. They have become essential parts of taking part in modern life. So it's really important that they work well, because if they don't, they enfeeble us. When they do work well, though, they empower us, and we love them, right? But again, with these tools, there's a very important question. Who owns these tools? Who owns these tools today? A handful of companies. Facebook, Google, Twitter, right? Apple. What is the common thing with these companies? They are all closed. And furthermore, some of them also share a certain business model. The business model of free, of giving you free services in exchange for your data. So you might say, well, so what? That's fine, I like it, free is good, right? Free is good? Yeah? Is it? Anyone like free here? Yeah? It's okay. I know I'm leading you on, but it's okay. You can put your hands. So if you like free, I have an amazing new startup to tell you about. You guys are going to love this product, okay? It's called Snail Mail. Now, I'm very excited about Snail Mail because with Snail Mail, we have solved a very, very important problem. The problem of real mail. That's right. With Snail Mail, you will get free, real mail forever. You can send as many letters as you want. You can send as many packages as you want to as many people as you want all around the world. Who thinks this is a good idea? Who would use this? Who? Yeah, come on. All right, yeah, some of you would. Wow, this is a very different crowd to the one I normally speak to. Because there it's like, please, here it's like, you're leading us on. There is a caveat. There is a caveat. We do open your letters. I know. And we do read them. But we only do this for a very specific purpose. So that we can get to know you better. So that we can give you helpful suggestions about what you can do from what we understand of what you've written, whether that's correct or not, so that we can help you. And don't worry, because we will just package all of this up again, and you won't even know that we were there, and we'll send it off, right? Of the 4 people who would use the service originally, anyone of you still with there? There's usually one who will do anything for free. Yeah? No? However, and I'd like to know, even in this crowd, how many of you use Gmail? There we go. Now, there may not be, there you go, not one person doesn't. There may not be a person reading your email in Gmail, but there are algorithms going through your email and reading them. Why? Because they want to know more about you. Why? Well, Snail Mail, tell your friends about it. It is at snailmail.com, right? And I think it's going to be big, really. Why does Google do this? Right? Are they evil? Is it a yes? Is it a conspiracy theory? Are they, No. You don't need conspiracy theories when you have the simplicity of business models, right? This is simply Google's business model. They monetize data. That's how they make money. That's how they pay for their buildings, pay for their people, pay for everything, make a profit, right? Now, some of you might know this creature from The Little Shop of Horrors, Audrey 2. She's a plant from outer space that needs blood to grow. In the same way, Google needs your data to grow. So how does it get your data? Via certain ways, right? Services, starting with services. In fact, Google started as a service, a very simple service. A service that wasn't even recording your data originally when it began. It wasn't recording anything. But today, it's a very different company. It has a plethora of services, right? Do you want somewhere to store all of your files? Please put it on Google Drive. Of course, Google will look through those files, but just to learn more about you. Pictures, put them on Picasa. We might do some facial recognition to see who's in there, but that's fine. We're just trying to help, right? Google Maps, we know where you are, etc., etc. Gmail, not just. Take Gmail, for example, right? Because sometimes people say, well, I'm fine with this. But you're not really just making this decision for yourself. Take Gmail. Yes, they're looking through all of your emails, but they're also looking through the emails of everyone who emails you. So you're taking it upon yourself to say, right, I don't care about my privacy here, but nor do I care about any of my friends or my associates' privacy as well. It's more than just a personal decision that we're making. How else do they get this data? Has anyone filled in a reCAPTCHA in this room? Anyone? Some of you, right. It's very useful, right? It protects websites from spam, but at the same time, you can see there's another word. Now that other word, when you enter that in, you are helping Google to understand the books that it has digitized. It's a little game, right? You're kind of the guinea pig, and they give you something, and you kind of, run on your little treadmill, and they learn something from that, right? Sometimes it is a picture with the number of a door that they took with Street View, and they want to be able to read what that number says. And then you help them with that. Little games, right? Sometimes it's actual games. Ingress. Has anyone played Ingress here? No? It's an actual game. You go around town photographing landmarks, you play in teams, right? It's free, of course, but what they're getting back is very hard to come by pedestrian traffic pattern data, right? So they give you an actual game, and they go scuttle, go scuttle, and then you look at where you're going and how you're doing it, right? But there's a limitation with services. You can say, oh my gosh, aral, okay, never going to use a Google service again. Thank you very much. That's awesome, right? And then they lose your data. Crap, they can't do that, right? They need data to grow. So what do? What's the next step? You offer devices, right? You offer these beautiful, subsidized devices. Why does a Nexus have the price of an iPhone? Does Google have twice the economies of scale of Apple? Is Tim Cook, who's supposed to be a supply chain man, asleep at the job? No. It's because it's subsidized. Because these are beautiful data entry devices, right? That they give to you and say, please enter your data. It'll be great. Beautiful experience. Very game-like, right? What they've done there is they've made your sign-in to your device your Google sign-in, your Google login. So at that point, it doesn't matter which service you use, they're going to get some amount of valuable data from you. That's better. But what can you say? You can say, hey, you know what? I don't like this, I'm not going to use your devices. They've lost again. What's the end game? If your business model is that you need data to grow because that's what you monetize, what's your end game? It's pretty simple. Your end game is connectivity. You provide connectivity, connection to the internet, right? Like what Google is doing with Google Fiber. Why? Because then it doesn't matter which device you use, right? You can use an iPhone, they will still get valuable data from you, right? Google Fiber for San Francisco and other centers of, the so-called Western world, but also all of these companies seem to have a fetish on the next billion. Have you guys heard about this term? It's the next billion. We need to get the next billion online. And it's usually because, these poor people in Africa, their biggest problem is that they don't have the internet and they can't access Facebook. What kind of life are they going to have, right? So we need to get them online. This is the most pressing matter. It's a humanitarian thing. So with Google, for example, they want to do these with balloons, with Google Loon, right? Give internet access to the next billion. Make the next billion's experience of the internet a thing that you sign into with your Google username and password. Facebook wants to do the same thing with internet.org. There may be a generation of people, a nation of people, whose only experience of the internet is something that you sign into with your Facebook username and password. We've kind of been there before, right? Does anyone remember AOL? Only it's greater in scope. So just like Audrey 2 needs your blood to grow, free services need data to survive. No conspiracy theory, a very simple business model. So you might have heard the term, if you're not paying for it, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold, right? I prefer you are the quarry being mined. You are the livestock being farmed. We are the new natural resources, right? Just like during the Industrial Revolution, we usurped natural resources around the world. We are doing that again. But today, we don't do things in the same way, do we? We have environmental regulations that say we can't just go and despoil the environment willy-nilly. We still do to some degree. In the same way, we will need regulation. This is not just something we can solve with new technologies. So what? I like being the quarry being mined. You know what, aral? On Facebook, if I don't want to share something, I can mark it as private. In your face, right? There we go. Well, not really. Not anymore. Not after 9/11. In the US, after 9/11, They formed the Information Awareness Office. This is their actual logo. Yes. With the goal of reaching total information awareness, right? Now, if your goal is to know everything about everyone, do not make this your logo. To have a pyramid with an all-seeing eye shooting lasers at the world, because, quite frankly, people get scared. And people got scared. And they said, oh, no, it's fine, we'll shut it down. Right? But, as we found out, they didn't shut it down, did they? No, as we found out, the NSA really needs to hire PowerPoint designers. But beyond that, all of the companies that we trusted with our data were part of PRISM, right? There's one thing about this slide that I think we do need to, appreciate, which is that Microsoft was first at something, which
AOL in 2000.
so it doesn't always happen, right? So, and what were they sharing? They were sharing everything that we thought would be private if we set it to private. Why? Well, there's a very good reason for it. Because it's much easier for governments to ask Google or Facebook for your data, because once you've surrendered voluntarily your data to a third party, it's not under the same protections. It is much more expensive for them to actually surveil this data directly from you. They need to get warrants, they need to set up a ban maybe to be parked outside your house. Much more expensive than simply going to a central repository of data, which is not under the same protections, and to say, give it to us. In fact, that's not even all they were doing, as we know from the Snowden leaks, right? They were tapping into the pipes and just getting everything, dragnet surveillance. So, if this is the case, then these companies, the Googles, right, the Facebooks, they must be really, really worried about this, right? So let's take a look at what Eric Schmidt, ex-CEO and executive chairman of Google, has to say about this whole subject. He says, there's been surveillance for years. I'm not going to pass judgment on that. It's the nature of our society. So, let me just see if I have audio here. I'm so glad I checked, because I don't. Where is the audio? Did you turn off the audio? That's okay. This is where I check. There we go. So, last 10 seconds didn't happen. Let's see what and neither did the next 5. Are you okay? All right, cool. This is all excitement from here on, really. So let's see what Eric says we should do. I mean, what's the answer, Eric? Right?
If you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
So if you have something you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Why didn't we think of this, right? Now, I'm taking the piss, but Eric is a really stand-up guy, and he wanted to prove to the world that he wasn't just saying this, he meant it, right? So he went and he created several websites and uploaded some personal information of his own, pictures, etc., movies, right? Just to make his point. Some of my favorites are ericstoiletantics.com. It's a bit weird, but interesting videos. Then there's Eric's favorite sexy times. Yeah. But my favorite, really, is ericsmasturbationadventures.com. It's very interesting. They're all very unique. Now, these websites don't exist, and nor should they. Because that's not what privacy is about. Privacy is not about whether you have something to hide. Privacy is whether or not you have control over what you want to keep for yourself and what you want to share. We have, in our current day, redefined privacy. It used to mean for you alone. We redefined it to mean between you and Facebook, or between you and Google alone. I think it's time to reclaim the original meaning of private. And Geert was showing us several examples like Snapchat and Secret, which are supposedly anonymous. They are not. Which are supposedly ephemeral. They are not. They're, again, centralized silos. Yes, you may not be able to access an image that's been sent to you on Snapchat, but Snapchat has still got it. right? You may not know who's posting to Secret, but Secret knows who's posting exactly what, right? So again, we need to redefine what private actually means. There is a reason privacy is a fundamental human right. A fundamental human right, furthermore, that's enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 12, to be precise. So Google and its ilk are emerging as great threats to our privacy and therefore our civil liberties and therefore our human rights. And they are leading us down a path that I call digital feudalism. Digital feudalism is a state of affairs where we do not own, we do not even have the option of owning our own tools, our own services, and our data, but we must rent them from corporate entities. Not a great place to be. And that's the problem. So if you want to know more about the problem, there's a great documentary called Terms and Conditions May Apply. I believe it's available on iTunes now and on Netflix, and it's non-technical, right? If you want to get your friends to understand the problem, watch this. But if we leave it at the problem, that's a very depressing place to leave things, right? So let's not, because it'll just be like, okay, we're fucked. What do we do, right? What's the alternative? The alternative, of course, is open, right? And open is so easy. Free and open are so easy, aren't they? I don't know why we're not all using free and open for everything, right? So easy. Let me take you through the 3 steps you need, and we can fix this problem tonight. We can all go home and just sleep well. All right, let's do this. Number 1, you clone the Git repository of an iCloud alternative, with social features, right? Now, you all with me? That's cool, yeah? Number 2, you configure and deploy it to your own server. We all have our own servers. Our parents have their own servers. Everyone's got their own servers. It's cool. And number 3, you just ask all of your friends and acquaintances to do the same, and we have solved this problem, right? It's not easy. That's the biggest problem we have in free and open. Just because something is open doesn't mean it's accessible to every audience. Open can be closed to certain people. What we do in the free and open world is closed to a lot of people, apart from enthusiasts. What we need to focus on is experience. And let me give you an example. Firefox OS, right? Mozilla, poster child of free, open, beautiful, lovely, makes Firefox OS. So I got the pre-production phone, I got the production phone, and I lived with it for a week. I would urge you to do the same for any new technology. Don't evaluate it on ideology or feature specs or whatever, right? Live with it for a week. Does it empower you? Does it enfeeble you? So this was hello. It said hello to me like this. It said set the date. That's a pretty rude hello, right? But more than that, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that nobody bought this phone in 1980. So why the fuck are you making me go through 30 years just to set the date? Why? Because you don't care about my experience, right? You didn't even think about that. This was a valid error message. I reinstalled the operating system twice before another friend of mine said, actually, that is a valid error message. This is the opening of the Nokia Maps application. If you can't read what it says, that's okay. Neither could I. This is the actual Maps application. There's a button on that lower corner that I have never been able to hit. It became a casual game. When I had time, I would boot it up and I'd be like, can I hit the button? No, I lost that game. This is the Twitter app. This is me sending a direct message to my girlfriend. If you can't see what I'm typing, that's okay. Neither could I, because the keyboard is covering it, right? And perhaps even worse, this was the Train Times website not rendering properly, so I couldn't use it, which meant that on a certain day, I didn't know that every train out of London Bridge Station had been cancelled, which in and of itself is an amazing occurrence. So there I was talking to the guards and losing 2 hours of my time, which meant that I got back to my girlfriend and to my dog 2 hours later than I should have. And this is the result, the effect of the things that we make. We make things that people use, right? If those things work, we empower them. If they don't, we steal little bits of their lives. And that's why it is so important what we do. So, of course, user experience is not the only problem I have with Mozilla in general. It is also the fact that they get over 90% of their revenue from, surprise, surprise, Google. So if you get 90% of your revenue, more than 90% of your revenue from a certain company, I would question what vested interests that creates. Which doesn't necessarily mean, well, what are they working on? No, what are they not working on that could be a real threat? And also, and I think Garrett touched upon this, mentioning that the meetings were for young men, young white men. We have a diversity problem in free and open. We are not going to solve this problem with just white, straight men, right? We're not going to solve a problem that affects the consumer market with one tiny piece of demographic, right? And this isn't helping either. So, open source today is features-led. That is our biggest problem. We're still living in that time gone by where features were important. There was a time when features were important. If a feature, say, getting your clock speed up to twice the speed that it was, meant that you could send someone to the moon, who cares how hard that is to use? You're going to learn it, you're going to do it. But in the consumer market, we have feature parity for most products that matter. So features are not a differentiating factor anymore. The experience is. But open source is still a sandbox for enthusiasts. That's okay. It's great that they have a place to play and great things come out of that. I'm not saying we need to stop doing that, but we need something else also. Because we're harboring under this theory of what I call trickle-down technology. And just like trickle-down economics, it doesn't really work. Trickle-down economics, if we empower the hugely wealthy to be hugely wealthier, then somehow some of that wealth will trickle down to other people who also need it, right? If we look at the US, where 1% of the population controls 40% of the wealth, they're still waiting for the trickle down. And we are still waiting for technology to trickle down. Because whether we're conscious or not, we're harboring under a similar theory. That if we enable enthusiasts to create tools for other enthusiasts, somehow they will trickle down into usable products for consumers, right? And that does not happen. This is why we've been giving people personal computers for the last 30 years when apparently all they wanted were iPhones. But even worse, we've been telling them that they are too stupid to use them when we've been too stupid to create simple solutions. It's about the experience. The companies that get experience, Apple, of course, Google, when they're making their own products, they share a certain characteristic, control. Control over hardware, control over software, control over services. Soon, they will have control over connectivity. Why is this important? Because it's the combination of these things that creates the experience. We can take those apart and examine each element. The user does not. They either have a good experience or a bad one, right? The age of features is dead. We're living in a new age, an age of experiences. One of the companies that makes one of these remotes understands that. Because the design of that remote is a symptom of that understanding. That understanding is what creates certain organizational structures, which creates certain budgets, which creates certain development methodologies. Great design is not what great designers do. It is everything else around it, the environment that's created. So what we need to do is to create a new category of open technology. I call this experience-driven open. And in order to do this, we need to create new types of organizations that are design-led. Because design does not bubble up. Design has to come from the top down or it does not happen at all. Great design is a symptom of a design-led organizational structure and development processes. So today, if we look at our technology landscape, sure, we have features-driven closed. The Microsofts and the Nokias of the world still churning out crap by the dozen, right? But we also have experience-driven closed. But in the open world, in the free world, we only have features-driven open. How can we even compete with those people when we are missing a whole quadrant of technology? Experience-driven open is that missing quadrant. So what? Why is that important? Without that quadrant, we're not going to fix the problem of empowering regular people, not enthusiasts, consumers, to own their own data. This is a battle that is going to be fought, lost, or won in the consumer market. The sooner we understand that, the sooner we can start adapting and responding to it. This is what I call indie technology. Indie technology is the next evolution of free and open. Free software was revolutionary, right? And even today, it gives us the infrastructure that powers the internet. It is a hit with enthusiasts. What did Tim O'Reilly and his friends do with that? Took it, stripped it of morality and ethics, and said to businesses, here, don't you like it now? It just means that the source is open, and we got open source. And it was a big hit with businesses. But what we need today is the next evolution of that, targeted at the consumer market. So to finish, I'm not just talking about this. When I was thinking about all this, I also thought, what is the first product that I can create that will be an example of this new category of technology? What will have the most impact? And I thought a phone, because that's what we use. So we're making that phone. It's called IndiePhone. And it will have its own open source operating system. That's great, but not enough. It will have its own open source personal cloud. That's okay, it's not enough, because as we saw, there are lots of people working on these problems. That's not what's key about this. We need a third thing, to seamlessly combine the operating system and the cloud in a beautiful experience where you don't even care about the operating system or the cloud. And that's why we've undertaken the audacious task of actually building a phone, our own phone. It's called IndiePhone. The tagline isn't marketing. Deeply empowering. User experience can be superficially empowering. When you use Google Maps today, that empowers you in the here and now. What's it doing to your long-term civil liberties and to your long-term human rights? That's what I mean by deeply empowering. Empowering you in the here and now through user experience, that is key, that is essential. To not do that and to tell people, use these complicated, convoluted, open, and free tools that we've created just because they're open and because they protect your privacy is arrogance. We have to empower people in the here and now, but we have to also empower them deeply in the long term. And I hope that I've been able to communicate to you how important it is that these consumer technologies, the character of them, who owns them, who owns the tools, the data, and the services, will actually color the very fabric of the society that we live in, the character of the society that we live in, and determine how much civil liberties and human rights we enjoy in the future. And I hope that you will join me on this journey to make an alternative to what exists today. Thank you.